Hi, this is Chris from Clever Unicorn Games and the Unicorn Collective, back with another one of our interviews. Today I have Aislyn Hall with me. How are you doing today, Aislyn?
Hello, I'm doing quite good. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Um, what do you do when you're not creating or designing games? What is it that your spare time has you doing?
Gosh, I feel like this is probably an answer that a lot of people have said, but it's usually playing games. I was playing tons of Ghost of Tsushima in the past 2 weeks. It's so good. I love it so much. It's just kind of like enjoying art in motion. So it's really fun to explore those worlds.
Yeah, no, I saw I've not got it yet, but I am sorely tempted. So many of that kind of game around at the moment that you think, oh, can I really do another one? But so far, I've not heard anybody say a bad thing. I've seen quite a lot of good reviews, especially on how it is a little bit different to all those sort of games that have come before in that kind of open world, run around 3D setting. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give that a go.
Yeah, it really appeals, I think, to a broad audience because it doesn't have like super complex and obtuse RPG systems. So you can just go in and like every skill your character gets and everything you're doing just kind of viscerally makes sense because you're a samurai and you stab people and you slash people and you parry and you dodge and like your character continues to progress, but it doesn't progress in a way that you have to like theory craft or do anything kind of weird that some people aren't used to.
No, it does sound like a lot of fun. When it comes to board games, what would you say is your favorite board game that you like to play?
My favorite board game. Gosh. I swear I'm like my whims change. Like every time I play a new game that I find really fun, I'm like, this is my new favorite board game ever. And recently I think Tapestry has taken that title. I love it so much. I've played so many games of it. Usually I'll play like 2 to 3 or 4 games of a board game I like, and I'll be like, "That was cool. I feel like I got the experience." But I've played like a dozen, maybe 15 games of Tapestry so far, and I just constantly find new ways to play and new emergent things that happen. Uh, it's just awesome.
That's probably one of the only Stonemaier games that I haven't played yet. There's nobody I know
Really?
has it, and I've not got much room in my collection at the moment, but I am coming to the point where there's a few games I haven't played in a while. I need to sell, make room on the shelf, and buy some new ones. So that will probably be in there because usually I love their games. Like their games are spot on.
Yeah, definitely. We're
So
we're the flip actually because that's the first Stonemaier game I played because it was the first one that like really look. I saw that and I was like, "Ooh, that looks like really fun." I love civilization building games, so Tapestry really spoke to me in that regard. And I was always like tempted by Scythe, and like I saw Wingspan, it looked really good. I love the art, I love the style they have. But Tapestry was the first one that really like captured me.
other good civilization games. Nations. Did you play Nations yet?
No, I haven't played Nations.
Look Nations up, but that's probably my favorite civilization building game. It's a bit more in depth. 'Cause I
Okay.
know Tapestry's a bit more abstract, isn't it? And a little bit
Yeah.
more. But Nations, yeah, definitely one. If anybody likes civilization building games, I usually say try Nations because it's a brilliant game. I did an interview with the designer there a couple of weeks ago, and it's coming out with a second edition at some point in the future as well, which he's fixing all the little things that he didn't like. I mean, I think it's a brilliant game anyway, but you know what designers are like. There's always little things that they
Oh, yeah.
you want to
There's
fix.
always something. There's always something. You'll release anything and you'll be like, "It could have been better." But, like, you gotta release something at some point, right? But sweet, I'll check that out because I do love civilization building games.
What kind of games, or what game was it, if there is one in particular, that inspired you to start making board games yourself?
Oh my gosh. Dang. I mean, God, I played so many when I was a kid. I think what really inspired me to start making games for tabletop was probably Magic: The Gathering. Yeah, I know, it's just such like a it's not like a super crazy hyper specific designer game or anything, but I don't know, like I had never played anything like it before. Like I had played Yu-Gi-Oh, but it never really struck me. And then Magic finally made me realize what was so cool about like a card game where you build your own deck and you can kind of put your own identity into the game in any way you want to. Like there's so many options, and you can explore that. And I'm definitely a Johnny, which is a Magic the Gathering player archetype, where you there's like different Magic the Gathering player archetypes, and there's like Spike who's like super competitive and wants to win no matter what, and there's Timmy who wants to play giant creatures and just like blow everything up and win in one turn, and then there's Johnny who wants to like win in a really weird, crazy way that they figured out themselves, like with some weird combination of cards like nobody expected. So that's definitely the camp I'm in, and I love it. So
Yeah,
Magic the Gathering just took me, and I took off.
I was kind of the same with Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was probably just turning around about 20. I was about 20 years old when I first got into like that cards game sort of thing, and I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was fun. But then played Magic the Gathering and it was the same. It was kind of you get sucked in by all the different combinations and things you can do. And in the same vein, finding things that other people don't use, which generally, if other people
Yep,
don't use them, it means that they're probably not as good because there's certain metas that people go for. But it's
yep,
fun to use one of those ones that people don't usually use and then win a game and then have the engine work brilliantly. Yeah, that's one of the fun things. Problem I have in my area is that the people that I played Magic with are much better than me and have spent a lot more on their deck. So it was a case of
yep,
I was only winning ever like one lucky game out of 10 or 15 games, and they sort of wore me down a little bit. And
yeah.
not having anybody at my level kind of spoilt it a little bit.
That's fair, and that's like a big problem with that kind of competitive game in general. Is just like if you can't find a group of people that are kind of at the same level of uh, hobbyism, where they're spending similar amounts of money to you, and also at the same skill level, it's kind of going to lose its luster.
Yeah, but there's a reason it's been around for 25 years or whatever it is, or 20 years now, isn't it? Though, just a
Yep.
really well-made game. That yeah, there's a lot of options for people to use, and online as well. I played a lot more recently online with their arena, with Magic the Gathering
Yeah.
Arena. That's really well done. The fact that you don't need to
Yes.
put a lot of work in to get the decks that you want. The fact that it gives you enough of the wild cards to get whatever card you need and so on. It just makes it. It's not. I didn't feel it was in any way pay to win like I thought it was going to be. When I first went into it. So there's that.
Yep.
Anyway, let's move on.
Sure.
Um, when coming up with the game, so when you have the game idea in your head, where do you go first with the idea?
Oh, I go first. I always try to come up with a concept that I can like an elevator pitch. So I kind of like try to imagine myself just telling someone like doesn't even like I try to imagine myself telling people who are kind of in different levels of um like different levels of interest in the hobby. So like someone who doesn't even know anything about board games, someone who just all they do is board games, someone who's kind of in the middle. Like how would they react if I told them this elevator pitch of this idea I had? Does it make sense? Does it sound fun? What's the main thing about the game that people can like see visually really easily and be like, okay, I kind of get what you're going for here. Do I like this? Do I not like this? So I really try to focus on that like main selling point and the core that makes it unique, and then build around that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. When you're doing the pitches as well, do you do one for different levels of people, or do you just try and do one for everyone? So if you would say you were going to speak to somebody in the industry, would you do a different sort of pitch to them than you would somebody you're just trying to explain the game to that probably isn't in the industry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like you can kind of gauge pretty quickly someone's like level of knowledge about like whatever game you're coming up with, and then you can kind of talk to them, communicate with them in the way that they would be familiar with.
With Ivion, did you publish that yourself, or did you go to crowdfunding with it, or did you find a
I
publisher?
I went to crowdfunding, so I like published it myself via crowdfunding. But I worked with a lot of people, and I couldn't have done it without them. So we kind of all came together to do something, and we were very young when we first started, so we were very inexperienced. So we kind of like ramshackled something together, and that was our first product.
Yeah, I've been looking at it on Board Game Geek, and yeah, it looks really good. It's a really nicely laid out and put together package. I quite like the look of
Oh,
that.
thank you. Appreciate it.
So from when you thought of that game to going to crowdfunding and then delivering it out to the gamers themselves, uh, was there any point during that process where you hit a barrier or a hurdle and it completely stopped you dead and you didn't know how you were going to get past it? And then how did you overcome it?
Oh my gosh. I have to like dig through my memory of so many times where that ended up happening. Yeah, okay, actually, yeah, there's one in particular I can remember that was so challenging. Um, so when we were setting up our Kickstarter campaign, we were kind of going through and writing in as like placeholders for a bunch of things that we were thinking about doing. And one of those was like, oh, well, maybe we can make an art book because we have a bunch of cool art and we can make like a really cool art book that shows off all the beautiful illustrations and like the world and talk about that. And that could be like a stretch goal or like a deluxe edition bonus, right? Um, that was just an idea. We didn't have any plan for like who was going to make it or like what it would look like or anything like that. And we forgot about it. We forgot about it in our backer rewards. And when we did our final pass, no one caught it, unfortunately. And so we launched, and you can't change your description after you've launched. And so we had essentially told people like, you get an art book if you buy this tier. And we were petrified because we were like, oh my God, like we weren't planning for this. We already have so much else on our plate. We don't know how we're going to handle shipping. The game's not even done, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to do this. And it ultimately fell on me because, like, I don't know, someone just had to make this art book, and we decided that we weren't going to back down. We were like, okay, like, well, we said we were going to do this, so let's deliver. Um, and so I ended up like learning how to use Photoshop and just sitting for hours, like trying to figure out how to make interesting effects and make this art pretty and present the lore of the world with all of these pages. And it took so long and it was so hard, and I learned so much. And like, I don't know, for a long time there, I felt like what was I gonna do? Like I felt kind of hopeless in it, but I don't know. I just pulled up my bootstraps, and one step after another, eventually it happened. It wasn't like the most beautiful thing in the world, but I'm really proud that I like, you know, actually did it as opposed to giving up.
Yeah, no, that's a really good example. I mean, I've spoke to a few people that have done Kickstarters that have done this exactly the same thing. Well, they've come up with something, added it in, and then later on gone, oh, actually, I have no idea. I mean, maybe they didn't forget it, but they just didn't know where to start with it, and nobody on the team had done
Yeah.
anything like that before. So it was one of those on the fly in that month that, and the well, you get a short time afterwards as well after it's finished. But yeah, you've still got to get it done, you know, in a certain amount of time before you send it off to our printers, and then have to worry about it getting made. But yeah,
Yep.
that's yeah, that is a good thing to. What did I do anything like that? No, we decided not to because I've done a couple of Kickstarters, and yeah, we decided against doing anything outside of our comfort zone. Took the coward's approach. I
I
mean,
mean,
if it,
that's fair though, because like running a Kickstarter is so intense emotionally and like technically. Everything about it is just so hard. So like trying to stay a little more conservative about your offerings is usually, I think, the right call.
yep. Um, have you ever played a game that you just didn't like at all? And you don't have to name it, but what was the mechanic or the theme or what was it about that game that just completely put you off it?
Ah, yes. Let me think. I'm trying to think of a good example because I've I will say I've played many games that I don't like. But I'm trying to think of like a good example that I can clearly describe why I didn't like them. Because usually when I play a game I don't like, I don't play it very much after that. So I have to recall. Let me look over at my shelf of shame, and maybe I can find a game. Oh my gosh, I can't say that. I would get strung up.
Is it Gloomhaven?
How did you know? Yes, I was looking at Gloomhaven. Oh my god. Okay, fine. I'll talk about Gloomhaven.
No, no, I will
Gloomhaven.
say as well, I don't really like Gloomhaven even, so
Oh
I'm
my
right there with.
gosh.
But we can. The thing about Gloomhaven is you can say you don't like it because there's enough people that do like it that it's okay
Yeah,
for somebody to not like something, and it's easier to not like it when lots of people like it.
that's true. I mean, because there's obviously like redeeming qualities of it, and you're not just saying like I hate this game and everyone else does too. So like screw whoever made it. It's not like really like that
Well,
with
I'll start off
Gloomhaven.
to make it easy for you. I'll tell you why I don't like it, and that's
Sure.
mainly. I mean, the actual game itself and the game mechanics are sound enough. I don't mind the
Yeah.
game mechanics, the way the card and the strategy of using your cards and them being like stamina, and you've only got that amount of cards until your stamina runs out. I quite like that. What I don't like
Yep.
is that it takes longer to get out of the box and set it up than it does to play the game, and then it takes just as long to put it away again. So, and
Yep.
I can understand. I have a friend that loves it, but he's a single guy that lives on his own, and he can put it on the table and he can leave it there. so we can just play it
Right.
constantly. With me and my
Yep.
family, I couldn't do that. I've got to get it out and put it away every time we play it. So that just meant that, yeah, I played it for, I think we played about 6 quests in it, and then it was like, no, this is just too much effort, and ended up getting rid of it. But that's why I don't anyway. You know,
Yeah.
there's a game in there, but it's surrounded by way too much maintenance.
So much baggage, so much, yeah, maintenance. Yeah, and it's kind of like the tabletop gamer's dream in a way, and but it's like it's a dream. Like dreams never, like they're not real, I guess. Uh, yeah, I I was in a position where I could keep it out, and I do totally agree with you that the setup and the maintenance and the baggage is just insane. Like I've never played a game that has that much before, and it really is a detriment. Um, and I think that there's like a mindset you can be in where you're like, that's a good thing almost. Because it's like so cool that it's so giant. And it's like, oh my gosh, guys, we're 22 and we're in college and we're not doing anything and we can just like leave it on the table and like pick it up tomorrow. And that's like super exciting. But I don't know. There's like a lot of people that just can't do that. And so it's a very different situation for them. I also had some problems with the mechanics. There were some really, really, really amazing things about it. Like, yes, the stamina system and running out of cards is really cool. It makes you feel like your character is getting more tired and more desperate as the battle goes on. The automated like dungeon master system where the monsters kind of figure out what they're doing. Amazing, super innovative, and like almost revolutionary even in kind of like how you can create that system. Something that I was just so incredibly disappointed in was it was so clear to me, like it felt so telegraphed to me that unlocking these new characters was like so important and a huge deal. And I was so excited to like unlock more characters for the game. And I finally got to the point where I could. Um, and each new character I unlocked didn't feel terribly unique or interesting. And it felt like each new character that was more advanced than the previous one, but to the point of absurdity, like where their mechanics were so complex that it had kind of lost its beauty and simplicity, and it was just like tinkering with numbers and obtuse things at that point. It had lost its grounding in reality, and it was hard for me to picture like what I was doing and what made that character cool. So that was a big problem I had with it.
Yeah, no, I see that as well. I don't think I got far enough. I think what put me off a little bit as well was how long it took to get the unlock. So the quests that
Yeah.
you were doing took a lot of actual playing, well, the missions or whatever you call them in within the quest. It took you so many quests to unlock them that it would take you
Yep.
10, 15 or something games sometimes to unlock that next character.
It asks so much of your time. Like it's like, all right, like you're married to me now. Let's go. It's like, oh, I don't know if I can really commit to that.
What is it? Why is it that you make games? What is it that drives you to make the games? Just not only the board games, but what is it that drives you to make board games and the video games that you help to make as well?
Oh, I mentioned this before we had started recording, but it's the art in it all. And it's like painting like a picture or creating something beautiful that people can look at and appreciate, but it's in motion, it's interactive. You can see the joy in people's faces when they figure something out or they win a battle or like they overcome a challenge, or they find something unique to them that they love in this world. It's just it helps people in so many ways that are so subtle, I feel. Like no one can point to like, okay, that's not true at all. Let me rephrase that. Some people do actually point to a game and go, this game saved my life, right? Like just as an escape to get away from issues or to honestly, like sometimes games can teach you more about yourself or more about other cultures or more about other kinds of people. And gaming and what it is such an amazing medium for, I don't know, like equalizing us in a way. I don't know. It's just so awesome.
No, I agree 100%. How has the world at present, though, affected the way that you are designing and making games? Has it affected it?
Yeah. I gosh, at Bungie and the current season we're working on, uh we were planning on doing something that could have been like sort of construed as like a disease. And once COVID started hitting, we were like, we can't really do this anymore. Like, we have to back away from this and like reframe this as something else. Because we didn't want to, we didn't really know what was going to be happening in the world. We didn't know how COVID was going to be panning out and how it was going to be affecting everyone at that time. And so we ultimately decided that it was just a better idea to step away from it and not, potentially cause any, uh, make anything in poor taste, I guess you could say.
That is brilliant, yeah, because that's the right course to take. Whereas you'll see now, especially in the board game world recently, there's been a few games released based on both COVID and the situation, which it doesn't seem right to me. I think I spoke about it in a previous interview with somebody. There is an ethical line that you probably don't want to cross, and that's using the pandemic itself to make money from a game based around. I mean, I can understand if it's a factual game, one that teaches you about this sort of thing, then yeah, you can understand it. But when it's a joke game, it's
Yeah,
kind of it's not the best thing to do at the time. But that's another story.
yeah. Well, like people's lives are like affected by it, and you may not know anyone whose life is affected by it, but there are people who have lost loved ones. There are people who have died. It's a big deal right now, and making like trying to profit off of that in that kind of way, it doesn't feel right.
Are you working on any other board games right now? Are you looking to release anything else for the tabletop?
I'm always looking to release more for tabletop. um, I am currently working on a standalone expansion for Evian, which is going to be coming to Kickstarter very soon. And I plan to continue working on that tentatively. I am always coming up with new ideas, and I'm like going to my partner, Aaron, my partner who works on games with me, and yeah, and I'll always go to him and be like, I had a dream about this game, like we totally have to make it, and he's like, okay, well, like what's it about? I do it so frequently that it's just like, oh, which ones are gonna stick? I have like a bunch of game design documents that are either half finished or totally finished that are just kind of like waiting to be iterated on. Um, so I guess my answer is I have a ton of ideas in my pocket that I want to do, and given the opportunity, I will absolutely jump on them.
Including what's it called? Calbria. Is that the expansion that's coming?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the name of the realm, like the lore kingdom that it's set in, which is the expansion to Evian. But we're kind of framing it just as Evian, the hero crafting card game, kind of as like a rebranding of the game in a way.
Oh, nice. So,
Yeah.
what would be one piece of advice or a small collection of pieces of advice for somebody who has an idea in their head and they want to start creating board games? What would you say to that
Oh,
person?
oh man, work on it every day, right? Like, if you have an idea, keep thinking about it, write things down about it. Think about different elements of it. You have to spend time on it to make it something that you can eventually action on, right? And if you spend enough time on this idea and thinking about what you want to do, um, you can make cards or make a board or gather some pieces and actually try it and see how it feels and ask other people to try it and see what they think. And oh man, when you see what other people think about that idea, you're going to start learning about what works and what doesn't, because that's really when it starts getting forged in the crucible of iteration. Um, but yeah, you just, if you have an idea and you really want to get started, you kind of just have to go for it. And that's one of the really amazing things about making tabletop games is you kind of can just go for it. It's a lot harder to get started in video games because you have to learn a lot of technical skills. But you can get started and try out a tabletop game idea with sheer determination, as I like to say.
Some paper and some pencils and determination. Yep.
Yep.
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to me today, Aislinn. This has been brilliant.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Chris.